And we have a lot to get to this morning. First, some Republican senators on Capitol Hill pledging to press ahead with investigations into Hunter Biden and his finances after President Trump's impeachment acquittal last week. The president's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, has said he backs that effort. Mr. Giuliani joins me right now. Rudy, it's wonderful to see you.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much for joining us. You have two smoking guns on set with you right now. We're going to get to that in a moment.
Yep.
But give me your reaction first to the president's acquittal, the State of the Union, where Speaker Pelosi rips up the president's speech. How's the president doing post all of that?
The acquittal, of course, was wonderful, but it never should have happened. I mean, he didn't do anything wrong. And I think over the next couple of months, you're going to see that what he did was perfectly justifiable. The amount of crimes that Democrats committed in Ukraine are astounding. And when you say investigate and call Hunter Biden, I mean, Joe Biden was the guy who did the bribe. And Joe Biden was the guy who took the bribe in order to protect Burisma.
Which bribe? Tell me about
which one.
Bribe you're referring to.
We want to talk about Iraq, we want to talk about Ukraine, we want to talk about China.
Let's talk first. Ukraine.
Every time Joe Biden was named point man, the Biden family made millions. As a prosecutor, that just doesn't compute for me. He's named point man in Iraq. The brother gets a $500 million housing deal. 4 days later, no housing experience. Ukraine, point man, the kid makes $8 million. And now they're looking at where the money went to Joe. The whole deal there was between the owner of the company and Joe, and it was to protect the company. And the reason he got the prosecutor kicked out is, remember they said that Hunter Biden was not under investigation by that prosecutor?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like you to look at this document that he unequivocally says, and this is around the time he was fired. This is February 18, 2016. He was fired in February 2016.
Okay.
It just reads very simply, Burisma Holding Limited and its director, Hunter Biden, are involved in corruption affair. And then it lays out a stone-cold money laundering situation that he was involved in for $14.6 million that went from, disguised as loans, from Ukraine to Latvia, Latvia to Cyprus, and then it came to the U.S. And they wouldn't give the prosecutor the amounts of money that went to Hunter Biden and Devon Archer because the prosecutor was told the American embassy wouldn't give it. Well, I recovered those documents from the trial of Devon Archer. You know, his partner was convicted of
insider
securities fraud.
Right.
In that trial, they had to produce records that shows this money coming in at exactly that time. So it ties the money laundering all together. If there were a document about you or me like this, I think we'd be in jail by now.
The Treasury Department...
He hasn't even been investigated.
Well, this is the thing. Every time you bring this up, the critics of the president say, well, this has been looked at and looked at before.
Nobody
this
ever
actually has not been looked at.
Nobody ever looked
and
at this.
And the Treasury has now...
I recovered this. Nobody looked at this. They have for 2 years, the Justice Department and the FBI. I have 4 witnesses who say that for 2 years they've been trying to get this information to the Justice Department and the FBI. One FBI agent went like this to the witness.
Why isn't it important to some people to investigate the Bidens? Is it because he was in the Senate for 30-plus years and they're all friends with him? I mean, is there a personal situation here? I will say this. The Treasury has compiled a list and documents. They have complied with a Republican-controlled Senate inquiry into Hunter Biden's business dealings in Ukraine. They've handed over highly sensitive evidence of questionable origin. That is a report from last week. So the Treasury is complying with an investigation that's happening now.
Very good. I think what the Treasury Department should do is look at every one of the family transactions because this was a pattern of behavior. They were monetizing, the family was monetizing Joe's public office. When he was a senator, they did it, and 3 major ones when he was as vice president. In Iraq, in Ukraine, in China, and we're talking millions. We're not talking pennies. Joe claims he didn't notice that his brother and his son, who has this challenge with drugs, were becoming millionaires right around him. Joe's answer to all 8 situations is, I don't know my family's business. That only worked once for Kate Corleone.
Yeah. You have a second piece of information you want to share to us, evidence this morning?
Second one, equally equally damaging. This is a memo from a woman named Ali Chalupa. She worked for the Democratic National Committee. This is a memo to her boss, the comms director. This is May 3rd, 2016, right in the middle of the election. She brags to him that she put together, I invited Michael Isikoff, whom I've been working with for the past few weeks, and connected him to the Ukrainians to talk about Paul Manafort.
Isikoff is a New York Times reporter.
Yeah. So this is the crime they were investigating the Trump organization for. This is what they investigated Donald Trump Jr. for 2 years and said they were going to indict him for. Meanwhile, they have an admission that she was getting information from foreigners and funneling it into the campaign. Then she goes further. She says a big one will hit in next few weeks. The big one in the next few weeks was the phony Black Ledger.
The dossier?
Yes, the phony Black Ledger, in which they announced that it would destroy Trump's campaign.
By the way, they used the same reporter, Isikoff, to leak things during the Russia collusion narrative as well.
Documents don't. I tried enough cases and argued this very often. You put this in front of a jury and you say, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, documents don't lie.
I got to move on, but I want to finish this here. Do you think we're going to see accountability? We spoke with Senator Lindsey Graham on this program last Sunday, and he said, look, it's not his department. It has to be foreign affairs. He says Jim Risch is resisting.
Not my job. Not my job, man. Not my job.
Lindsey Graham says he wants to investigate.
I love Lindsey, but not my job.
But how are you going to get them to get down there and testify so that we can get some documentation under oath so that we can understand
the Democrats
what they're
have done this thing that Biden's running for president, therefore he can be engaged in multiple briberies and get away with it. It's ridiculous. Do you
think we'll get accountability?
These are not simple crimes.
Are you expecting another investigation?
He corrupted Ukraine. And he soiled the reputation of the United States. How do we have relationships with Ukraine and try to get them to be honest if we can't hold our vice president accountable for bribing their president or for taking a bribe from one of their most crooked citizens?
So you do believe we'll see accountability? You do believe we'll actually hear from Hunter Biden?
If we don't, we continue to have the double standard where Republicans are treated harshly, Democrats get off the hook.
What do you think is going on with John Bolton? This unpublished manuscript is claiming that you, Mick Mulvaney, Pat Cipollone were present when the president asked him to call Zelensky, paved the way for you to go investigate. Your reaction to Bolton?
I was never at any such meeting. 1,100%, never at any such meeting. I do not know what John is talking about, and I'm very angry at John, because John says I was a hand grenade. At no time, and during the entire period this was going on, did John Bolton, who I've known for 10 years and consider a friend, did he come up to me and say, Rudy, I'm concerned about what you're doing. I'm worried about what you're doing. Never. Instead, he says he went around my back to the Secretary of State and complained. Secretary of State says he didn't, by the way. So I don't know what John's up to. I mean, he's either a liar or he's a backstabber.
Do you think they're going to call him and then continue this, trying to call people to get more dirt on President Trump since the impeachment failed, the collusion narrative failed?
If he says things like that meeting, which didn't occur, I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I can see being bitter about being fired. And I think he thinks I was involved in his firing, which I wasn't. I actually recommended him for the job,
Let me switch
which makes
gears.
it a little...
Mr. Mayor, everybody knows what you did for New York City.